Deadlocked on Diddy. The jury in Sean Combs' sex trafficking case is stuck on one charge, but there's a good chance we will get a full verdict today. Plus, Alligator Alcatraz. President Trump tours a new immigration detention facility in the middle of the Florida Everglades. And a different kind of miracle on the Hudson. A dog missing for more than a week is found alive in the waters of the Hudson River. Those stories and more today, Wednesday, July 2nd. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. Jurors in Diddy's sex trafficking case are at an impasse. On Tuesday, the jury sent a note to the judge saying that they had reached a unanimous verdict on 4 out of the 5 counts, but were at loggerheads on the first charge. The mogul is facing racketeering, 2 counts of sex trafficking, and 2 counts of transporting prostitutes. Count 1 on the verdict sheet is that racketeering charge. And RICO cases are historically complex, and the law can sometimes confuse jurors. Now, it's been on the books since the 70s and is aimed at combating organized crime, so think mafia here. To get a RICO conviction, the feds need to prove that there was a criminal enterprise and a years-long pattern of committing crimes. And under the law, those crimes are specific, including things like fraud, embezzlement, drug dealing, and arson. Now, in Diddy's case, prosecutors spent weeks trying to establish that very pattern of criminal activity, even calling rapper Kid Cudi, who took the stand and accused Diddy and his cronies of torching his car. Now, the judge urged the jury to continue deliberations, and they pick back up today, and a final verdict seems very likely very soon. And now to the Everglades, where President Trump toured a brand new immigration detention center smack in the middle of the swamp in Florida. Now, it's been dubbed Alligator Alcatraz and will house up to 1,000, quote, criminal aliens. This is according to Florida's Attorney General. The Florida AG says that the site is relatively cheap to run since there was no need to invest that much in a perimeter, on account of all the alligators and even some pythons. It's basically free, scary reptile security guards. Now, the president was joined there by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to inspect Alligator Alcatraz. But the gators might not be the worst part. The facility includes rows of bunks inside chain link cages that look a lot like dog kennels. And there's a line of open air toilets sandwiched between the bunks and the telephone. Now, after his trip to the Everglades, the president announced a big update regarding the conflict between Israel and Hamas, posting that Israel had agreed to a 60-day ceasefire during which the two sides would negotiate a permanent end to the war. As of Tuesday night, Hamas had yet to respond. And now to the internet's favorite feuding former bromance at it again. President Trump and Elon Musk are having another Real Housewives reunion-style spat. Here's President Trump on Tuesday after a reporter asked him if he would deport Musk, the richest man on the planet.
I don't know. I think we'll have to take a look. We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is? Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible?
Now, for his part, Musk has done nothing to bring down the temperature between the two, threatening to throw his support and, perhaps more important, his money behind one of the president's chief Republican rivals, Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky. The libertarian-leaning Massie is one of the loudest voices who are pushing back against the president's big, beautiful bill, and Trump has vowed to back a primary challenger in 2026. Musk cannot stand the big, beautiful bill, and he has not been shy about saying so, calling it utterly insane and political suicide. And should the president succeed in signing the bill into law, Musk has promised to create a new political party, the America Party. Now to our big story. You guessed it, the one big, beautiful bill. After 27 hours of voting on amendments to this gigantic budget bill, the legislation passed the Senate, thanks in no small part to Vice President J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. The bill is now headed back to the House for a vote this morning, maybe. Republican Senators Susan Collins of Maine, Rand Paul of Kentucky, and Tom Tillis of North Carolina all voted no, forcing the need for the Veep to intervene. Alaskan Senator Lisa Murkowski was the swing vote here, but even she admitted that the bill isn't perfect, telling reporters after the vote, quote, "My hope is that the House is going to look at this and recognize that we're not there yet." And there's certainly no guarantee that this is going to be an easy fight on the other side of the Capitol. The bill that's being sent back to the House is very different from the one that they sent to the Senate back in May. For more on the future of this pivotal piece of political legislation, I am joined by the Post's political reporter, Ryan King. So, Ryan, the gap between the Senate version and the House version is significant. There are a lot of differences. So, what are the biggest changes that the House is going to need to contend with now?
I think the biggest thing is the impact on the deficit. The Senate's version was projected to increase the deficit over the next 10 years by about $3.9 trillion, whereas the House's version was about $3 trillion. So there are a lot of fiscal hawks in the House that are really unhappy about that. There's also some deeper cuts to programs like Medicaid in the Senate version than what was in the House version. So there are a number of House lawmakers that are pretty uneasy about that. Remember, lawmakers in the House are up for re-election in 2026, whereas there are a number of senators that aren't up for re-election next year. There are a few that are, but there are a lot that aren't. So that's a big concern for them. They're going to have to sell that to voters. There are a number of little things that they lost out on, such as efforts to prevent illegal immigrants from getting access to Medicaid funding. The Senate rulemaker had basically thrown that out, and there are some House Republicans that were complaining, why do we have to listen to the Senate rulemaker, the Senate parliamentarian? Why not just overrule her, which Senate Republicans have really been inclined not to do. So there are a bunch of changes like that. There was also a larger increase to the debt limit, which is something that the fiscal hawks on the House side really didn't want. There's an increase of $5 trillion, whereas the original House version only had a $4 trillion hike. So a bunch of changes like that. And there are a lot of House Republicans complaining about the Senate version, but they do have a history of complaining about a lot of these things and then ultimately voting for it at the end of the day. So we should see what happens.
It's such an interesting point that you make about the 2026 midterms and how people's constituents might influence how they're going to deal with this in the House. But can you give us a sense of how this might go? What are you hearing from your sources about next steps and the timeline?
Yep. So they're going to try to get this done later in the day, Wednesday. They're going to try to bring it up for a House vote. There are still concerns. They're still trying to figure out where everyone's at on this. But the goal is to pass it as it is. We'll see if they're able to do that, because if they make significant changes to it, then it has to go back to the Senate, or they have to go to conference committee, and that's going to delay things significantly. And this barely got through the Senate. It had to have a tiebreaker vote from the vice president. Senator Lisa Murkowski had basically said afterwards she wanted the House to make revisions because she wasn't entirely comfortable with what they passed, and she was the one that got it over the finish line. So I think GOP leadership in the House side is really keen on trying to just get this done in its current form, if possible.
All right, we'll have to see how it all shakes out. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thanks so much.
And now from our friends at Page Six, from beautiful bills to beautiful billionaires. Now, it's pretty clear that the Kardashians don't have the same faces that we first met in the early aughts. There have been some tune-ups, but the famous family is famously cagey about the work they've had done until recently. Khloe Kardashian, following in the example set by younger sister Kylie Jenner, fessed up to every nip, tuck, and tweak. First off, Khloe looks damn good, and for good reason. The reality star has had a nose job, laser hair removal, salmon sperm facials, regular facials, Botox, Sculptra, peptides, collagen baby threads, and soft wave treatments. That last one there is a schmancy ultrasound technology that snatches the face. Plus, her exercise and skincare game is elite. You know, as I'm reading this, it reads a lot like my Christmas list. Anyway, Khloe also tagged all of the practitioners who did her treatment, so if you want to go out there and get your Kardashian on, you can. Beauty is pain, my friends. And finally today, 9 lives not just for cats anymore. A Chihuahua mix named Chile must have had quite the adventure after he went missing in Manhattan for 10 days. Now, Chile was out for a walk last month when he wiggled out of his harness and ran right into traffic. I know, my heart skipped a beat too. Now, his dog mom told the Post that he got bonked by a car, then got spooked and ran away faster than she could chase him. She and her partner spent 10 hours a day for the next 4 days searching the city, calling Chile's name in the streets with no luck. Then 10 days after he broke leash, a group of kayakers in the Hudson River spotted Chile covered in oil, malnourished, and doggy paddling away in the river. They brought him safely to shore where he was soon reunited with his humans. He's got a clean bill of health from the vet and a tighter fitting harness now. Oh, I love a good story to end this with. That's it for today. For the latest on these stories and oh so much more, head to the New York Post in print or online. And could you do something for me real quick before you go? Click that like and subscribe button. The more you do it, the more everybody else out there will get to enjoy the New York Postcast too. We are everywhere that you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please and thank you. I'll miss you until tomorrow.